Kapolam, Kundala Shim Kabjam, Ihina Giri Vanogyam, Nilamekam Varadyam, Kalamushala Vishalam, Kamapalam Samide. So this is from the Garga Samhita, very, very dear verse to our Gurudev. He appreciated it very much. And so Brajmohini Jidi, she read the translation, and I also have here an excerpt from one of Gurudev's talks where he was elaborating on the verse. So we can hear that as well. Spurnamala Kiritam. Baladev's crown is decorated with many jewels and looks very beautiful. When Baladev is first seen, the beauty of his crown is noticed first. He always wears many ornaments, and all of these ornaments are also decorated with jewels. Chalanalaka Kapolam, Kundalashi Mukabjam. His curling hair is very beautiful. It is not properly organized. And some of it covers part of his face, but he appears more beautiful because of that. Guru Maharaj called it agreeable negligence. Tuhina Giri Manogyam. His color is bright white like ice. Nilame Gambaradyam. He wears exalted peacock blue colored cloth. Alam. His weapons are the plow and club. These two weapons are in his two hands. They are mantra put, empowered by spiritual energy. Baladev can destroy anything with them. If he simply touches his plow to something, fire or electricity can come out and destroy that thing. When he thinks his plow needs to be a little smaller, it becomes smaller. When he thinks it needs to be bigger, it becomes bigger. And actually one thing Gurudev mentioned about Baladev's plow is that he said Baladev was 14 feet and his wife Revati, she was 21 feet. And so Baladev took his plow and he shrunk her so she was an equal height with him. So they were both 14 feet. His plow can do anything he desires. And lastly, his name was Kamapal. He can fulfill all the desires of Krishna and all the desires of Krishna's devotees. And Gurudev, he would chant this verse with great relish, very beautiful verse. Okay, well, first I want to apologize for my lateness and coming in and out. We're kind of in the countryside here. Well, we are in the countryside, and it's also been storming today. And also there just seems to be some comedy of errors at play as well. But we had a very beautiful program here today. Just to mention before we go to remember specifically the glories of Baladev, we can mention how we have felt the mercy of Nityananda, Ram, Balaram, Nityananda in our lives in a tangible way here today in Italy. We had a very beautiful program, a noontime program, and it was quite surprising because there were many persons who kind of came out of the woodwork. Persons who we haven't seen in a very long time. The temple room just filled up, very unexpectedly. So we felt, the mercy of Baladev was bringing many people. We also had some very auspicious rain that started, and it's been burning hot here for days. And we had some auspicious rain that started in the middle of the program. So it's been a very auspicious day. We're feeling the mercy of Sri Guru. Gurudev would compare, and it is also expressed in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's song that we sing every day, Samsaradava, that the mercy of Guru is compared sometimes to rain that is falling and giving relief to the souls burning and in the heat of material existence. And Baladev, Nityananda Prabhu, he is the Adi Guru. He is the original Guru. And and so we see our Guru we see all Gurus as representative of Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Baladev. He is the Guru. If we're speaking specifically up to the first four rasas, he is the master of that area, and then Radharani is representing Guru in Madhura Ras. So Baladev, he is the supreme servitor. He is Krishna's first expansion, and he is the supreme servitor of Krishna. Also, he's always, to the last detail, he's thinking about how he can please his Lord, how he can serve his Lord. It is even mentioned that before Krishna was born, Baladev appeared first in the womb of Devaki. So he was actually the eighth child, right? The eighth son. But then Yoga Maya shifted him to the womb of Rohini. And Vishwanath, and so apparently externally it appeared that Devaki had something like a miscarriage, but actually it was that Baladev was transferred to another womb, to Rohini Devi's womb. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's given the explanation that the reason Baladev did that is because he wanted to prepare things very nicely for Krishna first. He's also appearing as he expands into unlimited form. And so one of his names, one of his forms is as Ananta Shesh. Ananta means unlimited. So he's expanding into unlimited forms. His service has unlimited expressions. And he appears as the Simhasan, as the throne of the Lord. He expands into the shoes, into the umbrella. So also when Krishna is going to appear in the womb of Devaki, then Baladev, he decided to appear there first and make sure that things were comfortable for him, to set everything right, to receive him properly. He is the ultimate servitor. And we were remembering today how this is one reason why he likes to appear as the elder brother, because in the form of the elder brother, he is more free to serve Krishna as he likes. When he's appearing in the role of the younger brother, then he has to go along with whatever his Lord tells him, because that's the etiquette, even if what he wants is detrimental to himself. So in the case of Lakshman, when Baladev is appearing as Lakshman, then he's bound to be submissive to whatever Ramachandra wants, even if it means going into exile for 14 years. Whereas if he had been in the role of the elder brother, he could have put a stop to that. So he's made that expression, that he doesn't like to play that role. He likes to be in a senior position so he can arrange things as he likes. and particularly, we're not hearing so much about Krishna Lila. The way that our gurus have trained us, there we have more emphasis on Gora Lila, and we understand Gaura Leela to be the entrance to Krishna Leela. So we hear some things about Krishna Leela, we hear some things about Baladev, but we're also learning more about that Leela, learning more about Baladev in its expression within Gaura Leela. And so the significance of Baladev is seen very much in his form, in his manifestation as Nityananda Prabhu. And it is, this is a point which has been emphasized so much by our gurus. The mercy of Nityananda Prabhu is indispensable. We cannot go anywhere, without the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. His mercy represents the very foundation of our spiritual lives. So, so much emphasis has been given to us. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, so many occasions he's chanting Doyal Nitai. In his last days, we hear when his servitors would bring him his japa mala, he would say, "Oh, take that away, give that to Govinda Maharaj. My only hope is Doyal, he's merciful Nitai, is Doyal Nitai." So we've seen, we've heard from them what indispensable significance is there in the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. Gurudev, he made this very beautiful expression that to not know the glories of Nityananda, to not know who Nityananda is like not knowing who your own mother is. To not know who your own parents are. And we also see many examples in Gaura Leela of how, there are several cases when it is demonstrated that without the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, you can't get anywhere. Our line is first you have to get the mercy of Nityananda, then you can get the mercy of Mahaprabhu, then you can get the mercy of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. So one of the prominent examples is in the case of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's that famous incident before he came to Vrindavan, before he came to compose Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was living with his brother in Bengal, and then one day one of the principal associates of Nityananda came to visit, Meena Ketan Ramdas, and Nityananda Prabhu is eccentric, as Baladev is also little erratic, and so his associates are also, they have unique characteristics. They have eccentric characteristics. One of them, it's mentioned he carried a trunk, a tree trunk that he used as a flute. One of them, I can't remember his name, but he had a whip, and whoever he would whip would get Krishna Prema.
Ramdas Thakur.
Ramdas Thakur, okay.
Ramdas.
Okay. So this Ketan Ramdas, he's one of these principal followers of Nityananda Prabhu. One of the things mentioned about him is that he was very playful, and sometimes when someone went to give obeisances to him on the ground, and he would climb onto their shoulders very playfully. But anyhow, he came to visit the home of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. However, the Kaviraj Goswami's brother, he did not have so much respect for Nityananda Prabhu. He had respect for Mahaprabhu, but he did not have respect for Nityananda. And so that disrespect was became evident. And while Meena Ketan was visiting, and the Pujari of the Pujari Gunarnava Mishra of Kaviraj Goswami's brother, he was disrespectful. He did not properly receive him, and so Meena Ketan Ram, he became offended, and not on his own account, but because he was feeling that, I'm here. He's there as something like an ambassador. He's there representing Nityananda Prabhu, and so if Nityananda's servitor, if Nityananda's devotee is being disrespected, then that means Nityananda is also being disrespected. And so Meena Ketan Ram apparently, was arrogant, but actually it was an expression of devotion and humility to his Lord. And this actually ties in with what was Chinmoy Prabhu's suggested topic. But before we remember that today was Baladev's appearance day, he was suggesting last week, we discussed this point, how sometimes the Lord's servitors, they can behave in ways that are apparently puzzling, in ways that are apparently arrogance, but it is actually an expression of great humility and devotion. The example that Chinmoy Prabhu mentioned was one point that's mentioned in the Garga, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and it came up at one time when Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he was doing a translation. There was one of his godbrothers. What was his name? I can't remember his name. Maybe Chinmoy can remember. But Ram Gopal Vijayabhushan, I think. Ram Gopal Vijayabhushan, something like that. He was doing the translation under the guide from Sanskrit to English of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and we have that in our mat. And under the guidance of Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And there was this one point that he came to, that there was a description of some servitors saying, they were mentioning different names. Oh, Rukmini, oh, Satyabhama, oh, Baladev also, we don't care for you. We will do our service. We don't care for you. This is our service. Get out of my way. Something like that. And so Ram Gopal, he was very puzzled by this. Baladev, he is our guru. Satyabhama, Rukmini, they are most worshipable to us. How can this devotee speak in such a way? So he brought this to Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj explains that this devotee was actually expressing a very intense mood of service, that his, Gurudev gave the example. We heard this from Gurudev. Gurudev gave the example that if your master is going to clean the table, then what will you do? Will you just sit and relax? No, you will say, you sit down. I will worship you. I will worship your lotus feet. This is my service. I will do this service. So you go sit over there, and I will do puja to you. So it's actually a very like mature expression of service. There's this beautiful expression in Prapana Jivanamritam, the bold, where it refers to the boldness of service mood. As one matures in devotion, there's this type of boldness that will develop. There's a confidence that will develop. We tend to get like kind of a twisted idea of what humility is, but it's not actually what we conceive of humility in this world, like bowing and scraping and hiding in a corner. Like that is not our low self-esteem. This is not humility. You know, but divine humility, that is born out of something else, that is born out of a deep connection with the Lord, with the Vaishnavas. And that may sometimes manifest itself in a very lowly way, and may at other times manifest itself in a mood of apparent arrogance. But it is based on the deepest kind of surrender. Our Gurudev also, he, you know, there's a nice example with Gurudev. You know, I'm sorry, I actually, because this afternoon, earlier, like I spent an hour talking about Baladev and Nityananda, and I feel stupid repeating myself, so I'm diverting a little bit, I'm sorry. So anyway, we'll just see where this goes. But Gurudev, you know, there's that sweet example of Gurudev where he mentions how sometimes Srila Sridhar Maharaj would give jai to his name, and Gurudev said, and I would also say jai, because Guru Maharaj is saying jai to me, then what he's saying, it must be true. You know, I cannot deny that. So he was agreeing with what his Guru Maharaj had said as an expression of surrender. You know, if I don't accept what you're saying, it means that I'm saying that your opinion has no value. If you think this, then I have to accept that. And it's only by your mercy that any quality can come to me. Does that address what you brought up, Chinmoy Prabhu?
Yes, definitely, Devi. Thank you.
Okay. So anyhow, Ninaketan Ram, he also had some mood along these lines, you know, that on behalf of Nityananda Prabhu, he became very angry. And so he left very angrily. And so Kaviraj Goswami, he was very disturbed by this, and he went and he chastised his brother for his mood of disrespect. And there's this famous example that's given, very Bengali example we can add, you know, Arja Kukuti Nyai, the logic of half a hen, that a very foolish farmer, he may decide that he should, to economize, he should cut his hen in half, because the front part he gives lots of food to, and the back part gives him eggs. And so he thinks, you know, this front part I have to give so much trouble to, you know, I have to spend so much money to feed it. I don't need this front part. I'll just throw this part away. I'll just keep the back part that gives me eggs. So very, very Bengali example, Bengali country example. So Kaviraj Goswami, he used this example to demonstrate, you know, you cannot worship one and not the other, you know, and he goes so far as to say it would be better if you were an atheist and you just didn't believe in either of them, you know, than to believe in Mahaprabhu and not believe in Nityananda Prabhu. And so Kaviraj Goswami, he made this chastisement, and then that night he had a wonderful dream. Nityananda appeared to him, and it's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela chapter 5, there's this chapter, the glories of Nityananda Ram, and it's kind of heavy. Most of it's kind of heavy going because it's quite technical, and there's also some significance there because Gurudev has explained, you know, it's very significant that this type of ontological approach has been taken there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Also, if we look in our Param Gurudev, Srila Sridhar Maharaj's Nityananda Dashakam, there's this type of approach, you know, where before going like to description of the Leela, description of the mercy of the eccentricity of Nityananda Prabhu. First, there's this like very, like solid, systematic, ontological exposition of who he is. He's Baladev in Goloka Vrindavan. He is Narayan in Vaikuntha. He is the Purusha avatars maintaining this world. He's Ananta Shesh, supporting this whole mundane material manifestation. So like before you go to like critique this mad avadut rolling on the ground and riding on the back of crocodiles, remember who he is. Remember what kind of dignified position he has. So this chapter, chapter 5 of Madhya the Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's kind of heavy going for those reasons. It's very technical, and all of the different expansions of Baladev, Nityananda, they're described elaborately. But then towards the end, Kaviraj Goswami kind of switches gears, and he says, now I'm going to tell you how I personally experienced the mercy of Nityananda in my life. And he tells of this incident there, of this Meenaketan Ram coming to his home. And then it's described how he had a dream that night. And one nice point there, which I've always appreciated, is he mentions that, it's mentioned there that Nityananda was pleased because Kaviraj Goswami spoke up, because he didn't stay silent, like he saw that something was wrong. He saw that his brother's mood was wrong, and he corrected him. It's an important point, that if one is in a position, if one sees something wrong is going on, and they are in a position to do or say something about it, they have the duty to do so. And so the fact that Kaviraj Goswami did not stay silent, that pleased Nityananda Prabhu very much. So he appeared that night in Kaviraj Goswami's dream. And there's a very beautiful description of Nityananda Prabhu there, how he appears. He's intoxicated, as Baladev is often intoxicated by the Varuni drink. So Nityananda, he's always intoxicated by praying, by divine love. Preme Mata Nityananda Pipa Avatar Utamadam Kichuna Kare Vichar. He's so intoxicated by divine love that he can't discriminate between high and low, who's qualified, who's unqualified. He's the embodiments of divine mercy, and just whoever comes in front of him, he gives his mercy to them. So this beautiful Nityananda, he's swaying in this mood of divine intoxication, and his servitors are surrounding him. I'm trying to remember the details of the description. His servitors are surrounding him like bumblebees. He's wearing, as I recall, he's wearing this, because Nityananda, he changes a lot, so sometimes he's wearing like very beautiful silken outfits. Other times he'll dress like a renunciate. Other times he won't wear very much at all. So on this occasion, as I recall, he was wearing like a very beautiful silken turban, beautiful jewelry, but the description that strikes me the most is it describes his teeth as being like pomegranates, which is so perfect, because Nityananda, he chews this pan. If anyone's been to India, then you'll be very familiar with that. With this, like, I think it's like a type of tobacco, and it will stain your mouth and your teeth red. And normally it doesn't look so attractive. But of course on Nityananda Prabhu it becomes ornamental. So this description of pomegranate seeds is so perfect because they have they have this like translucent flesh, this like red translucent flesh, so you can see the white. They have these white seeds, and then this red translucent flesh over them. So it's such a perfect and such a beautiful description. And so Nityananda appears, swaying very beautifully, and he waves at Kaviraj Goswami and he tells him, Are Are Krishna Das Nakaraho Boy, Vrindavana Jaha, Taha Sarva Labhya Hoy. He tells him, oh, Krishna Das, do not be afraid. Go to Vrindavan. You will get everything there. So that morning he arose and he immediately started for Vrindavan. And very beautiful, that description in Chaitanya Charitamrita, so beautiful. Kaviraj Goswami, he makes that famous expression there where he says, I'm lower than a worm in stool, I'm more sinful than Jagai and Madai. And but he starts out by like in this mood of jubilance, like saying, by the mercy of Nityananda, I've got everything. I've got Vrindavan, I've got connection with Radha, Madhav, I have connection with Rup, Sanatan. I've got all these things by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. And then he says, he's expressing, there's a few different places, particularly that section and another section towards the end. But one expression he makes is, you may think I sound very arrogant, because normally Vaishnava will not boast about having so much. And then he says, and so then he explains there. And also in this other section, there's this phrase there, kritagna, ingratitude. If I don't say something, I will be ungrateful. So I have to say something. And then in that section in chapter 5, he concludes the chapter by saying, this is actually no credit to me. It's simply that Nityananda Prabhu is so extremely merciful. And then that Preme Mata, he's so intoxicated, he's so inebriated, he can't even discriminate, between who's qualified, who's unqualified, who's a fit recipient, who's not a fit recipient. Also, Vrindavan Das Thakur, it's very interesting. These are the two main biographers, if we want to use that word, of Mahaprabhu, Kaviraj Goswami and Vrindavan Das Thakur. And both of them, how did they come to make their presentations? It was because of the mercy of Nityananda, because of blessings of Nityananda Prabhu. So Vrindavan Das Thakur, he was actually he was the last direct disciple of Nityananda Prabhu. And so he's very fanatic about Nityananda Prabhu. So, to the extent that Gurudev meant, because he spends so much time glorifying Nityananda and Baladev, the Gurudev, he mentions that it could be called Nityananda Bhagavat instead of Chaitanya Bhagavat. I believe it's also mentioned in as part of Kaviraj Goswami's explanation as to why he's writing Chaitanya Charitamrita. As I recall, one of the points he mentioned is that Vrindavana's Thakur spent so much time glorifying Nityananda, and there wasn't enough space to fully describe Mahaprabhu's pastimes. So Vrindavana's Thakur, very fanatic about Nityananda, and there's that famous expression that he makes, that, you know, I've gone to, because he's a little defensive, you know, for the points we touched on a little earlier. You know, some people, they don't understand Nityananda because he appears in this very eccentric way. He's an avadut, you know, you know, people didn't even used to call him Nityananda. They would just call him the avadut. You know, we see this in some of the songs that we sing. Sometimes Nityananda is not referred to by name, it's just the avadut. Sangha by avaduta. You know, so who is an avadut? An avadut is someone who's completely beyond any rules, regulations, societal conventions, has completely transcended any social conventions or considerations, fully living on the Paramahamsa platform. So Nityananda, that's how he's always manifesting his Leela. And for that reason, he's often misunderstood, and there are some who criticize him. So Vrindavana's Thakur, he's a little defensive. He's a little defensive about Nityananda Prabhu, and and there are actually two places where he mentions in Chaitanya Bhagavat, I've gone to so much trouble to tell you of the glories of Nityananda. If you still don't get it, I'm going to kick you in the head with my left foot. And Saraswati Thakur, he gave that wonderful explanation that by this statement, Vrindavana's Thakur, he was opening a new channel of mercy, to give mercy to those who would otherwise have had no chance of having mercy. So this is also another nice example that ties in with Chinmoy Prabhu's discussion points. It is a statement of apparent arrogance, but it is actually an expression of humility and chastity and surrender to his worshipable Lord. There's also the famous case of Raghunath Das Goswami. He tried so many times to leave home, to take shelter of the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu, but it was only after he got the blessings of Nityananda Prabhu that he was able to do so. So there's a theme here, you know, it is consistent. The grace of Heno Nitai Dine by Radha Krishna Paitena. Without the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. There's a beautiful expression of Srila Sridhar Maharaj in his Nityananda Dwadashakam, where he says that without the mercy of Nityananda, any ideas you have about spiritual advancement, they're just like a dream. It's just imagination. So there's no looking around that. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's that. Maybe it's Chaitanya Bhagavat, but I'm just thinking of. I was thinking about it today, but we didn't discuss it earlier. Just the beautiful description. I think it's in Chaitanya Bhagavat. Beautiful description of the first meeting of Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, because you know their Leela, there's always something fresh there, right? So in Krishna Leela, they're like technically they're half brothers, right? Because they have the same father but different mothers. In Ram Leela, they're directly brothers, and then in Gaura Leela, they actually appear in different parts of the country. totally different families. So Nityananda, he appears in Ekachakra, and there's wonderful description in Chaitanya Bhagavata of his early years. He grows up playing different pastimes of Ram Leela and Krishna Leela. And then when he's 12, this, one mysterious sannyasi, we're not sure who he is, he comes and visits, and at the end of his stay, Harai Pandit Nitai's father asks him, what can I give you? Can I give you something? Yes, I would like your son, please. I would like an assistant. I would like a travel companion. It's amazing to think about it. This was the culture in those days. Such a strong religious culture. And so even though it broke Harai Pandit's heart and it drove him mad, he had to give his son to this traveling sannyasi. And so Nityananda, he traveled for about 10 years, visiting all the major pilgrimage sites. And then at a certain point, the separation from his Lord, it became too strong. And he wanted to be reunited with Krishna. And so what if you're looking for Krishna, where do you go? You go to Vrindavan, right? So Nityananda, he goes to Vrindavan looking for Krishna and asking everyone, where's Krishna? Where did Krishna go? And someone tells him, now Krishna, he's appeared in Navadvip. And so he goes to Navadvip. And Mahaprabhu, he has a dream the night before that great personality. He comes to Navadvip in this grand chariot with the flag, with the mark of Baladev, which is a palm tree. And so in the morning, Mahaprabhu tells his associates, I saw, I had a dream with this very great person. He came, and also Mahaprabhu, he went and hid. He hid at the, Nityananda hid. Sorry, I'm mixing it up. Nityananda hid in the home of Nandanacharya in Mayapur. And so Mahaprabhu, of course he knew where he was, but he told his associates, can you go out and try to find this person? And so everybody went and searched, they couldn't find him. And they came back, and Mahaprabhu said, I will go myself. And he went immediately there to Nandanacharya's house. And there's this wonderful description of their meeting. And it's very, very, very charming, because Nityananda faints. And when, they're embracing in ecstasy, and Nityananda faints, Nityananda loses his composure completely. And when he wakes up, he's in the lap of Mahaprabhu, which is so wonderful, because normally, it's like Nityananda, the supreme servitor, he becomes defeated at that point. Because normally, again, this is ego, this is service ego. Normally, Nityananda, he's in control. He's holding his Lord, He is the supreme holder. He's the throne. He's manifesting himself as the Simhasan, as the throne. He's the support. He appears as his shoes. And then as Ananta Shesh, he's supporting the whole cosmic manifestation. Bal is strength. Baladev represents the willing potency. Yan, Bal, Kriya. Vasudev, the consciousness, thinking aspect. Radharani, the playful, love, feeling aspect. Baladev, the willing, the strength, the power, the sustaining aspect. So that's what he's all about. But in this moment, Mahaprabhu, Krishna has the supreme victory, because Nityananda wakes up and finds he's in the lap. He's in his Lord's lap. Mahaprabhu is holding him up. And there's also, I think it's Mukunda, he starts to chant one verse. And I can't remember the verse right now. But I believe it's this verse that is, it's a description of Krishna and Balaram returning from the forest as observed by the Braja Gopis. They're peeking out of their houses and watching as Baladev and Krishna are coming, herding their cows with the other cowherd boys. So he's evoking this atmosphere of Vrindavan, indicating the eternal relationship between Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. And then from that moment, Mahaprabhu, his Sankirtan movement, it began in earnest with Nityananda and Haridas as his two generals. So it's a very happy day for us to remember the Leela of Baladev, to remember the Leela of Nityananda Prabhu, to remember to think of their mercy, to pray for their mercy, to think of our Gurudev, who is the full manifestation of Nityananda, Baladev, and to pray especially for his mercy on this day. All that comes to mind right now. Does anyone want to add anything or comment on anything?
Didi, I'm kind of always interested in the Mahabharata. You see these, I don't know what would you call them, but conflict or confrontation between Baladev and Krishna, like when Baladev is supporting Duryodhana, and also like when Krishna
Yeah.
There's these kind of conflicts a little bit, and just curious.
Yes.
Yes,
it's we were discussing that a little bit earlier. Yeah, it's very profound. It's very interesting. It's very it gives us a much broader perspective on things, and we see how the Lord's mercy is moving in different ways, sometimes in contrary ways. And that there's the direct line. There's also the indirect line. Yeah, it's a very curious thing. Duryodhana, he's enemy number one for the Pandavas, who are Krishna's favorites. But Duryodhana, he's the favorite disciple of Baladev, and Baladev, personally trained him in club fighting to the point that he became so good that nobody could defeat him. Even Bhima, who's supreme in club fighting, he could only defeat him finally by cheating at Krishna's suggestion. So, and then Baladev, he left. He was so disturbed by this whole confrontation, rather than having to participate in that or face that in any way, or even just be present, or he left. He went on pilgrimage for the duration of the Battle of Kurukshetra. So it's very interesting, to observe these differences. And then also, if you look at the Leela of Nityananda Prabhu, you see how that attraction for the unqualified is expressed in this very merciful way. That this how can I say this? This erratic kind of nature of Baladev it is manifest in this mood of extreme mercy for the most unlikely persons in the form of Nityananda. And so you see the example in particular of Jagai and Madai, who even Haridas Thakur, he's like trying to bring Nityananda back. Like, these are the last people we should be going to, these two drunkards on the street, who said they don't want to hear from us, that Nityananda is determined to give the mercy of his Lord to these unlikely candidates. So, yes, it's interesting to see this broadness within the expression of mercy, within the divine play of Krishna and his associates. This, we were mentioning earlier how Krishna, he's known for his intelligence, for his cleverness, and but a little lazy. Srila Sridhar spoke about those different ways in which persons can be categorized. There's lazy, there's lazy and intelligent, and then there's intelligent and industrious, which is the best, and then there's foolish and lazy, which is the worst. No, foolish and industrious is the worst, actually. Yeah, foolish and industrious, that's the worst, absolute worst category. Better just don't do anything, just like sit down, don't move. So of course the ideal is to be industrious and intelligent, right? But Srila Sridhar mentioned Krishna's nature is intelligent and lazy. but Baladev, on the other hand, he is not known so much for his sharpness of intelligence, for his, he's not known for his diplomacy. He's known for like raw strength, he's known for raw power and strength. So in Gurudev, he would mention that example of Uddhava, when Krishna and Uddhava, they were discussing some deep affairs of state concerning how to deal with Jarasandha, evil, troublesome king. And there were some intricacies involved because there were some special boons that had been granted, I think by Lord Brahma, and Krishna didn't want to cross over those boons. And so they were discussing these very fine points, how are we going to deal with this? And then Baladev, he comes striding in, what are you all discussing? And they explained, and then with Baladev, he couldn't understand what the problem was. And he just said, what's the need of all this elaborate discussion? I can just pick up my club and in one strike I could knock his head off. What's the issue here? What's the problem? So that is the style. That is the style of Baladev. And then you see how in his form as Nityananda, there's this indiscriminate mercy that is open for everyone. There's no logic there. He's rolling on the ground at people's feet. Please accept Gauranga. And they're saying, we're not interested. And he's saying, please. Like, where's the rationale there? Where's the logic there? Where's the considered approach? With Mahaprabhu, at least somebody has to. Mahaprabhu's distributing it, but at least we have to say, yes, I would like it. Thank you. But Nityananda is going after the ones who are running away. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So it is the most wonderful expression of divine mercy. Anything else from anyone? Should we stop there?
I have a question.
Who is that?
Chintamani Devi Dasi has a question.
Okay, great.
I always had a hard time understanding the pastime when Lord Balaram and Yamuna Devi and like the plow. Like, I always thought that was kind of mean. Can you help me understand that pastime?
Well, I think it just fits in with his whole persona of being a little erratic. It is Leela. It is Leela. You know, so Leela, it may not always be logical. It may not always be polite. But it is play. You know, and it's not. You know, we can add a disclaimer. No one was harmed in the making of this Leela. You know? No, it is Balaram's pastime of anger. And not that the Jamuna is harmed in any way. It is part of the play. You know, like, just if we take a small example, we see sometimes in family dynamics that let's say a parent expresses anger towards their child, but sometimes what can develop is that there's some play that develops there, and like the child gets some thrill out of doing something that makes their parent angry, and the parent also gets some thrill out of like being annoyed, like, oh, my troublesome little child, you know, like there can be some pleasure, some relish that comes, like, oh, I have such a naughty child, you know, like there can be this satisfaction, this fulfillment that comes from that. Srila Sridhar, she actually mentions in one place that he says that if Krishna was not naughty, Mother Jashoda might die. If Krishna wasn't naughty, Mother Jashoda might die, because her service necessity, her service heart needs that. She needs to be agitated. You know, she needs to be disturbed by Krishna. This is actually fulfilling her. She needs to have to chase after him with a stick and tie him up. You know, this is all taking a great deal of energy and ultimately giving her a deep sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. So it is part of the Leela. It is part of the Leela. And we can also mention, because that pastime took place during Baladev's Rasa Leela, because Baladev has his own, it's mentioned Baladev has his own group of gopis, and he performs a separate Rasa Leela. But it is mentioned by our acharyas that Baladev is not taking anything for himself. And that, you know, whatever type of exchange, whatever type of enjoyment comes, you know, he's doing it all on behalf of Krishna. Everything he does is 100% for Krishna. So, I mean, the way I see that pastime with the river Jamuna, it is just a charming exchange. You know, it is one expression of a loving exchange. You know, and so apparently it may seem to be rude or unfriendly. It is Leela, and we have to understand all of these entities and all of the whole environment, they're all conscious entities, and they all have intimate relationships with each other. So, of course, Baladev and Jamuna, they have a relationship. And my thought on like why did the Jamuna not come when he called her? My thought is, like anything's possible. Like one thought that came to my mind is, he was a little drunk with this Faruni drink, and maybe she's feeling a little nervous. Like what's going on here? We don't know, but we do know that they all have relationships, and this is all, I think we can see all of these things as a part of a deeper play and a deeper togetherness, unitedness. Although apparently it may not appear so. We were remembering earlier the incident Srila Sridhar Maharaj tells in Loving Search for the Lost Servant, the incident when Baladev slaps Krishna because Krishna, as we mentioned, he's very clever. So Baladev's on one team, Krishna's on the other team. Baladev's the strongest, but Krishna's team is sometimes winning because of Krishna's tricks. And so one day Baladev just got very frustrated about Krishna's cheating, and he slapped Krishna. And then Krishna, he went and complained to Mother Yashoda, which is the number one thing you're not supposed to do. That's like not cool, right? You go and tell on your friends. Really uncool. So then Mother Yashoda, of course, she calls Baladev and she chastises him. Why are you hitting your little brother, my dear baby boy, Krishna? Then Baladev, he was upset, and he went back to Krishna. How could you do this? You know how much I love you. You know how much you mean to me. You know how much I've done for you through so many lifetimes. How much have I done? What have I not done for you? And I do one little thing, and you go and complain to Mother. Like, what is this? How could you do this? And Maharaj mentions there, Krishna was completely bewildered. He was completely silenced and bewildered like that. So, even in this case, Baladev slapping Krishna, he's expressing some anger to Krishna. So, but it is part of their relationship. It is part of their Leela. And it is ultimately making everything more full and more complete and more variegated. So, things may not always be politically correct. Let's put it like that. In Krishna Leela, things may not always be politically correct. They're operating on a higher set of principles. They're not concerned with how their Leela may conform or not conform to our sense of correctness or incorrectness according to our experience of this world, this perverted world. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, she made a very wonderful comment that in this world there tends to be apparent friendliness, but internally there's animosity. Whereas in the spiritual world it's the opposite, that there may be apparent animosity, but internally there's deep intimacy, there's deep love. So that is another way that we can adjust these kind of things. Apparently there may be conflict, but actually there's the deepest love and closeness there. But we can also add, don't try this at home. not everything that happens in Krishna Lila is meant to be. In fact, most of what happens in Krishna Lila is not meant to be an example. So like this is why Krishna appears as Mahaprabhu, right? Because if we decide to serve Krishna, imitating Krishna, we're going to go very far in the opposite direction. And so Krishna so mercifully appears as Mahaprabhu to demonstrate, to show us a living example of how we can serve Krishna, how we can approach Krishna. Does that help, Chintamani?
Yeah, thank you so much, Vishakha, for your loving explanation. And I have one more question, unless somebody else does, or you have to go.
No, I'm fine. I can stay here all night.
Krishna. I have a question. So Balaram, usually his concert, Revati is one that's expressed, but we've learned that he has Varuni as also like a Devi, his second wife, right? Like the darshan at Tota Gopinath, that he has, Revati on one side and Varuni Devi on the other side. Did we understand that to be like his second wife, or like his personified elixir beverage?
Oh, I have never heard that. I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't know about that. I mean, maybe both. Also, the Jamuna appears as Kalindi, queen in Dwarka. So it's certainly possible that she's both. It's certainly possible. But I didn't know about that. I don't know very much about Baladev. I've never actually been to Bhagavatam. We've heard something from Gurudev and Param Guru Maharaj. Garga Samhita, there's more pastimes also mentioned, but I haven't been to that. So, but yeah, that sounds very possible. Mm-hmm. Well, anything else, or should we stop there? Anyone have anything they remember about Baladev they'd like to add?
I also just wanted to ask one last question if nobody else had any other questions about Balaram.
Yes, of course. I don't know if I can answer, but I can try.
How he kills Ramaharshan Sutta, Ramaharshan, he's like the father of Sutta Goswami, right? Or something like that. And he kills him just with the blade of grass, but then he gets criticized for that. Is that the criticism? We should just understand that when in the assembly of sages, when Lord Balaram is being criticized, it's because he likes it, right?
Wait, you're saying that Baladev is criticized because he kills Ramaharshan Sutta?
I could be totally wrong. I don't understand that pastime.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember the passage. So Baladev enters this assembly of sages, right? And Ramaharshan Sutta, he didn't stand up to greet Baladev, right? And so Baladev was angry. He had his angry persona, and he killed Ramaharshan Sutta. I think the point there was that if Baladev didn't observe the etiquette, then it would be bad. It would be a bad precedent, something like that, And so for that reason, Baladev, he undertook some penance because he killed a Brahmin, right? I think that was one of the points, and so that's considered to be especially sinful. The main point there is not that Baladev, it was considered I mean, anyone who had any knowledge, it wouldn't that they would consider he did anything wrong, but kind of just to set an example for society, that if you've done something wrong according to the general rules of society, then there should be some type of compensation, some type of penance that is done for that. And so I think that's why there was like some kind of I don't want to say punishment, but some kind of there was some expectation that he would do something to make up for what would ordinarily be considered a mistake. Obviously Baladev is completely free and independent, and if anyone he kills, they'll be uplifted. They'll be benefited. They'll be blessed by that. So anyone with any knowledge, they would know that. But because of the fact that they're living within society, and not to set a bad precedent, then there was some type of like correctionary measure. And Baladev, he happily accepted that. He undertook that penance. Those are my thoughts. Does that feel relevant to what your question was? Okay. I'm trying to think of another example where we see something similar. But I can't think of anything right now. But this idea, we hear about this idea, I mean, like Krishna, he says in Bhagavad Gita, if I don't need to follow any duty, but I am following my duty, observing some duties, because if I don't, then everyone else will drop their duty, and that will be bad I don't need to follow a duty, but they need to follow a duty. And there's that famous verse, Yad Yad Acharati Shashtas, saying that whatever a great man does, the general people will follow. And so sometimes, and so Krishna says, you have to do your duty if for no other reason, just so that the common people will have a good example to follow. So it's mentioned there, even if you've transcended a particular level of social convention, it doesn't necessarily mean you should totally abandon it. You may need to continue following it for the sake of others, and that's kind of like an interesting situation when you have someone like our Gurudev, who's the Paramahamsa Acharya, because they're actually two separate things, and the Acharya Paramahamsa are two categories. So it's interesting when they meet in one person, because it means that like as an Acharya, the meaning of Acharya is one who teaches by example, right? Like they're meant to be demonstrating the example, the way the general practitioner should follow. But then a Paramahamsa is someone who's completely transcended any particular, conventions, rules, regulations, practice. So they don't need to follow anything. They don't need to do anything. They can just live in the plane of their heart and serve according to their heart's inspiration. But if the Paramahamsa accepts the role of an Acharya, then they have to play that role. But then there are moments when they don't feel like it. like we saw that with Gurudev. Gurudev was very independent, and sometimes he would be showing in more in like a he would show the example, and other times he would be more independent, and you kind of had to be intelligent and know when to follow and when not to follow. He was free in that sense because he had transcended. But for our benefit, he also showed a more, conventional way of practicing, let's say. So yeah, it's an interesting point, and it's something that that we have to consider in our own practicing lives. It's like parents sometimes in teaching their children, they may need to set an example by doing things that they don't really need to do, but in order to train their child, have been grounded in some foundational principles, then they have to do that. So yeah, it's an interesting point. Okay, well, it's wonderful to be here with all of you today on this very auspicious day. I see Rukmini has also joined us from Alachua, and also Nadia Priya is with us from Kharkov. And I'm sure many of you, well, there's still lockdown to some degree, but I'm sure some of you've had some celebrations in your respective areas, or maybe they're coming up depending on what time it is. Okay, well, Dhanyavad. So should we stop there then? And hopefully meet next week.
Thank you, Didi, so much.
Thank you
Talks
so much.
about Krishna should be joyful, and you seem to give that out, so I'm very happy.
What did you say, Prabhu?
I said talks about Krishna should be joyful, and obviously you feel that way too, so it's very nice to hear joyful talks about Krishna.
By the grace of Shibu and Vaishnava. Okay, my Dhanyavad pranams. All glories to our Dave and all of his faithful servitors. Okay.
Jai. Jai Vishakha Devi Dasi ki.
Jai.
Jai.